everybody. I am Beth Shibley. I am the manager here at Sunflower House Aging Matters in Brevard's Caregiver Resource Center. We're located at Merritt Square Mall, between JCPenney's and Dillard's. And I'm joined today for the second of our Caregiving 101 workshop series, Adjusting to the New Normal, with my boss and all-around great person, Allie Amazing. And Allie, can you tell me a little bit about your role at Aging Matters and what you're here to talk to us about today?
Absolutely. So again, thank you, Beth, for the introduction. My name is Allie Almazian. I am the Home and Community-Based Services Program Director of Aging Matters in Brevard. Quite a mouthful. So I have been with the company it'll be 4 years in February. And I've kind of got a good grasp about the resources that are available in home and within the community, as I was over the home care program initially before, and now am over the home and community services. So my role is to kind of oversee all of, like I mentioned, the home and community services. So anything that keeps our seniors safe in their home and keeps them living safely and securely in their home independently as long as they can. So the resources that we have a ton of different resources, and we'll go into that in a little bit and kind of discuss the different options and assistance that Aging Matters in Brevard can offer.
And one of the things that I want folks to know is that there are many different agencies in Brevard County and in this region that offer similar services to Aging Matters services. But Allie and I are going to today be talking just in general terms about the different types of services that are available. And Aging Matters offers many of them in-house, but I understand we also contract out with some local companies for other services, for some of the services. But so this section here is called Adjusting to a New Normal. Last week, when I spoke with Kara Anderson from Simplifying Senior Living, we talked about the different choices between, kind of brand new to caregiving, and because mom fell or dad got a diagnosis, or there's different kinds of caregiving, and so you sort of have to go down one of two paths, and one path might be, let's try to keep mom or my spouse or my partner in their home or in our home, and then the other path would be, this is going to be beyond me. We need to seek a different living arrangement. And Kara and I spoke last week about that. And then this week, we're going to talk about folks that, at least for now, want to try keeping folks in their own home. So I know that when my mother and I started looking at care providers, Allie, it seemed like it was just an alphabet soup of initials. It was, it's LPN, RN, CNA, homemaker, caregiver, HHA, all those things. Yeah. You break down what each type of caregiver is that's available to come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna briefly start with a overall scope of kind of what is covered by insurance, and we'll kind of start from there. So most of the seniors have a Medicare or a Medicare type, whether it's a managed care or, managed Medicaid, something of that nature. And most of the traditional Medicare, whether it's like a Health First, which is predominantly in Brevard County, or traditional Medicare, many of those cover what they call skilled services. And those skilled services are covered, like I mentioned, from their insurance. And those are a lot of those acronyms, the LPN, the RN, the PT, the OT. And what those are usually you'll have a nurse, a registered nurse, which is the RN, that will come in and do an assessment, an overall view of what your loved one is going through. Typically, these skilled services, like I mentioned, are covered when someone is either being discharged from a hospital or is coming out of a rehab, a nursing facility. And those are covered when they need to have goals met in the home. There has to be, it's goal oriented. So they have to meet goals such as getting in and out of the bathtub, and being able to walk to the bed, being able to get in and out of the bed. And most of the times there's a lot of medication administration and management. They've got new medicine that is happening. And so that RN is in there to help with that medication management. And the physical therapist, which is the PT, is in there to help with transferring in and out of the bed. I always kind of give the idea of a PT being your ambulation, your walking, and your OT is the upper body, the top part, which is your eating, your dressing, your grooming.
I had somebody describe it once, below the waist, above the waist.
Yes, absolutely.
PT, below the waist is PT. Not that they don't all have something in common. I mean, they do overlap quite a bit. And one of the things that I realized when I started helping my mom in caregiving was that the skilled services that you're talking about that are covered by Medicare are generally associated with an event that has caused a loss in function. Dad needed to have his knee done. Mom fell and broke her hip. Somebody's had a stroke. But there's been an event that's caused you to be in the hospital and then into rehab, and then now you're coming home and you're trying to get back to a certain level of functionality. And that seemed to be the key, because what happens when you reach that goal?
Right. And when they reach that goal, then we get to a point of when possibly Aging Matters or other home health care agencies might be taking a step in. Medicare, like Beth and I had explained, Medicare or the traditional Medicare, whether it's a managed care Medicare or traditional, does cover that PT, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and nursing. But when you get to a point where I mentioned before, when you reach that goal, because it's goal oriented, when you reach that goal, they're going to call it quits. It's going to be done. And you're going to be lucky if you get 4 to 6 weeks out of that service. Mm-hmm. So what comes next? What happens? Because a lot of these people have maybe given themselves a little bit of, or gone towards a little bit of strength and gotten a little bit stronger, but they still need some assistance with the bathing. Mm-hmm. The skilled nursing or skilled therapy in the home is to give training and education to that caregiver or to whoever might be coming in after, to be able to make that next step into getting help with bathing and grooming and homemaking. Mm-hmm. So usually the next step is to have home health care. And the home health care is your personal care. So we go back to those acronyms. It's the PC, HM, respite, RESP. It kind of goes into those acronyms again. And the personal care is your bathing, your grooming, your everyday things that you're doing to be able to maintain your hygiene, maintain that skin from breaking down. And your homemaking is the basics of keeping your home safe to live in, meaning we don't want any wet floors. We don't want spoiled foods in the refrigerator. We want to make sure that you have clean linens and laundry's being done, maybe grocery shopping at that point. So there's quite a few different options with the in-home home care that can happen. And I'll go into a little bit too, just briefly, and we'll probably talk about it at some point, but those services typically are not covered by the insurance. Medicare or managed Medicare does not cover those. Mm-hmm. We have a great resource of available funding streams that we can get covered for it, but typically they are either private pay or if you have a long-term care insurance to cover it.
Right. And we do have some, you're right. We do have some for folks that qualify from, there's income qualifications, but there are some short-term grants that Aging Matters has access to those funds. I know that there's almost always a wait list, and it might or might
Yes.
not depend on where it is, where you live. I'm not sure what we have the ability to do. Right now, do we have the ability to serve everywhere in Brevard County, Ally?
So, we do, let me back up. Aging Matters in Brevard services all of Brevard County.
Mhm.
Whether or not we have the ability to service the entire county based on
Staffing.
caregivers is another thing.
Yeah.
Our company we get different funds and grants to be able to help support these seniors in maintaining their independent lifestyle, but we have wait lists. There's thousands, tens of thousands of seniors in Brevard County. And many of those, the majority of those do need some assistance. And unfortunately, most of them are on the wait list to be able to have some services. So yeah, we do have the ability to service all throughout Brevard County, but there is a nationwide shortage of aides and home and private caregivers to be able to help.
Yeah,
So
as
it's
we're
tough.
recording this, we're in January of 22, and we're still under this COVID blanket that I'm beginning to wonder whether or not we're ever going to get out from under it. But Aging Matters is not unique, and Brevard County is not unique in its challenges right now with keeping good folks in the field. And they're stretched, and they've been stretched for many years, and more so over the past couple of years. And it's not easy work, and it's not easy to find people and keep people. So sometimes it matters. I think sometimes it matters where the wait list might matter, where we have people available. You might have a home care worker who lives in St. John. She might not be willing to drive all the way down to Miko.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so you might have the availability up in Titusville, but you might not have the availability in Palm Bay, or the other way around, depending on where it is, and who's coming off the program and who's on the program. And long-term care insurance wasn't that a beautiful thing back 30 years ago?
Yeah. And and if you got it, you might as well have spent the money on the highest possible coverage that you could probably afford, because there's a long waiting period, or there could be a long waiting period. I know, fortunately, my parents were able to afford the highest coverage. So, they have the ability to have 24-hour care, but that is a rare thing. The long-term care insurance doesn't have the ability to cover the needs of the seniors at this point,
and it's changed. Long-term care insurance from 30 years ago, when they were first bringing it out and they were rolling everything out, it was really fabulous, and they offered everything from stem to stern. And they've tightened that up now. And it's not, and some services are just not even offered, or not even available. So, but what I would say to folks, if they're watching this, is to double check, because you might not know that mom and dad have it. They might because it's never come up, and we've been paying for it for years. Dad signed us up for this for years ago, and I don't know, I just pay it every month. And you find out that it's, it's our insurance. Well, double check, because if it's long-term care insurance, you're going to be in a much different place than if you're private paying.
Yeah. And absolutely. And I mentioned that even with your Medicare managed care that you might have, someone has health first. Sometimes there are case managers or care managers, and you may have benefits that are covered that you don't even know are being covered. So I always strongly encourage to reach out to the phone number on the back of your card and call them and see what you have available.
Right.
And many of our clients have been, under this managed care or Medicare for a period of time, and they may forget what they signed up for. So 100% reach out to the phone number at the back of the card and contact them. You may be surprised about a benefit that you might have, whether it's transportation benefit, or you may have a few visits from a CNA under your plan, someone to come in a little bit here and there. So definitely reach out to the contact phone number.
Another thing that people need to think about if they're caregiving is that they should check into their employee benefits at work, because there are some employee benefits, some insurances that are covered through employers that will that offer employee benefit, that offer benefits, such as maybe respite or things like that. Those actually do exist under their employee assistance programs. So people should look into those to see whether or not it's possible. You might be working for a company that's got the Cadillac of insurance covering that. So employee assistance programs, check with your HR departments to see whether or not there's any there's anything there.
Good idea, Beth. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true.
I mean, as employers are starting to figure out that if you can't keep your employee at work, if they're constantly having to worry about, mom or dad at home, so like the daycare for your kids, it's a thing. So
yeah,
so,
it's true.
What's the difference between between a respite care provider and a companionship?
So the respite is basically, so if you have a caregiver at the home, you've got a loved one who is helping assist with your everyday activities. That's respite. It provides some relief to the caregiver. And respite, people kind of get a little bit confused about thinking that it is just someone coming in and sitting with them. Actually, respite is every single service possible, really. It not besides the nursing part. It is if you as a caregiver need some assistance and you're requesting respite, that caregiver will come in. And if you gave a bath to your loved one during that 3 hours that the respite care provider is coming in for, you gave a bath to that person, that caregiver is able to give a bath at that point. They should be able to provide some homemaking, meaning tidying up the house, maybe doing a little laundry, possibly changing the linens.
Changing dishes, changing linen, washing dishes. Be running a vacuum, nothing heavy, but
absolutely. Tidying up the home, making sure it's safe and clean and free of any hazards. It also is a companion. They're able to provide that one-on-one interaction with the client too. So keeping them from being socially isolated. Respite, the only sticky thing on the respite is that you want to make sure these providers or these caregivers that are coming in to provide respite for your loved one or for the caretaker, they cannot leave the house until that caregiver returns home. So if the caregiver has a doctor's appointment and is out for 3 hours, but you really only scheduled it for 2, be prepared that it would be a longer duration, because they're technically not supposed to leave the home until that caregiver comes home. The respite is really for people who just are not able to stay home alone.
Well, and there's the kicker. It's for people who really have to have somebody with them, and you don't feel comfortable leaving your spouse who's in moderate to severe Alzheimer's, by themselves, and you desperately need to go out and have a dental appointment. So it's not right, which is different than companionship, which is So
companionship, absolutely. Companionship is not that one-on-one. Companionship, I don't want to say it's not the one-on-one. It is the one-on-one, but you can't provide that hands-on assistance. You can't provide the bathing. You can't provide the grooming. And really, under companionship, there isn't that running the vacuum. There isn't the sweeping, mopping, changing linens, or doing laundry. It's sitting with the client and enjoying that interaction with them, possibly playing cards, playing a game. Anything under the companionship, or even homemaking for that matter, that in-home assistance, you can't do any hands-on with a client with companionship or homemaking. No touching. It's strictly someone who has some experience providing care, meaning for a senior, but not the hands-on experience of it.
So a respite care provider could be a homemaker that doesn't do hands-on if that's what you need, but it could also be a personal care attendant who can do hands-on if that's what's needed. All based on when you're talking about respite care, based on what the individual needs. But they're two different
Could be.
Right.
In most of the companies that Aging Matters works with, most of our respite providers have to be able to have the certification to do personal care. So you have to have your home health care or certified nursing assistant certificate or license, as well as a home health aide certificate. So those are what we require, but there are a lot of different agencies with different regulations and understanding of what the services may be. So on a normal basis, yes, if you're providing respite, you should be able to provide that personal care, whether the client needs it or not. But it may just be that without going through or down a rabbit hole, it may just be more of a companion service that's being provided. So definitely check with the company to have them. You want to make sure that there is someone who comes out and does an assessment, or at least over the phone, completes a really in-depth assessment about what the needs are for your loved one. Every person is different, and every person needs, different things and assistance. So one person may not need help with bathing, but they still have a loved one staying with them. And so it's considered respite because they cannot be left home alone. But another person may need that personal care and may need that homemaking and still cannot be left home alone. So you definitely want to make sure that the company develops a good plan of care, for your loved one, to identify the needs. So that way every caregiver and staff member that's coming into the home knows what needs to be done while they're there.
Right. And there are, like I said before, there are many different companies and agencies, nonprofit and for-profit agencies and companies in the Brevard County that provide these services. One of the great parts about contracting with an agency or a company to provide the services is the fact that they are generally vetted and bonded, insured. You're going to get somebody in. They've undergone background checks. I know it's really tempting for folks to just say, I've got a friend, Nancy, she lives up the street. She could use some extra dollars. I'm going to have her come sit. And I think we've all done that. And it's an okay go-to, but long-term, it's worth considering the exposure that, we're all putting ourselves under when that something like that happens. And the example I have is that, somebody, Nancy might be perfectly okay if dad falls and she picks him up and she hurts her back. She might say, oh, gee, it's fine. But her son, the lawyer, might not be fine with that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely different levels for sure.
Right. And so I think it's good to recognize. And last time I checked, that none of us were walking around with tags saying, I'm liable to go through your china or your silver set or check jewelry when you leave. None of us have those signs on us that say that. So it's sometimes, we think we know people and maybe not, So, background checks are a wonderful thing. Our agency does all of those things.
Yep, we do. We do what's called a level 2 fingerprinting background check. And actually all of our aides, whether we provide personal care, respite, companion, or homemaking, we even have our staff be CPR certified. So even though normally in a homemaking situation or a companion situation, we are not going to lay hands on the client, but as an ethical guideline here too, and a citizen of
Right.
of the US, we have the ability to be able to help it be a good citizen, and
Right.
all of our staff are CPR certified. So if they ran into a situation and needed to perform CPR on a client, if they had that request, then we could help them and
It's
assist
a
them.
moral
But
obligation, right?
yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, as a healthcare worker for sure. Yeah.
So, so once you can now, and the services, what time of day can folks, I mean, can you contract with somebody to do overnight care? Can you contract with folks to do just afternoons? I mean, is it anytime?
Sure. So many of our services, we tend to stick with the Monday through Friday. The 8 to 5. Of course, there are different clients that offer a little bit different in a unique situation where they are early risers or they're bedbound clients, and their caregiver goes and is a school teacher and needs to be at the school by 7. So there are unique situations, but typically it is Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. We do help assist and guide with holidays. We do try to shy away from them a little bit because every caregiver needs the break, and we'd love them to have the same holidays as people in the community. But we do not do overnights. Our company is, our biggest goal is to keep people in their home, but we are also not a 24-hour care. We provide on average 2 to 4 hours a day, at the very most 5 days a week. Usually if they need more care than that or more help than that based on memory issues or some sort of dementia or Alzheimer's, then we do contract with many different adult day center programs out in the community. And since we have different funds and grants to be able to help pay for that, we can send them to an adult day center 8 hours, 5 days a week. But typically the in-home help is 2 to 4 hours. Usually rough estimate is 20 to 25 hours a week of providing
This is
care.
for aging matters. Of course, if you're going to contract with a home instead or an assisting hands, they very well might have overnight and weekend and
Absolutely.
So that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And every company is a little bit different. They may have a different minimum set hours.
Right.
So the best bet is to always reach out to the company, see what their minimum set hours is, and see what their availability is. They may have weekends and holidays. They may have 24-hour care. They may want to jump in and say, if you need 24-hour care, we're going to do 2 12-hour shifts, or we're going to do a 24-hour shift. So definitely reach out to that company. They're going to work with you. They're going to see what is best for your loved one. So absolutely reach out to them and shop your options. Not every company is the same. Right. So just like you would interview a staff member, interview the person who's going to be caring, providing care for your loved one.
Yeah. I mean, when we go to have our roof done, we're going to talk to 2 or 3 roofers and have them, quote the job. And find out what it is that they like to, how it is they do it and what it is they do and all those other things that it's, and sometimes it's about fit. It's about, and it's also about, sometimes folks maybe want to go with a smaller agency. Some folks might want to go with a bigger agency that has more capacity if something happens. Are they going to be able to send the same person day after day? What happens if that person can't come in or needs a day off? Is there somebody else that can cover? So all of those things figure into your decisions, and you're right. Whether or not there's no cookie cutter, one size fits all when it comes to caring for folks in their home. I think I'd like to speak for a little bit now, and Allie, you jump in, but one of the things that when people decide to keep their family member in their home, one of the things that they need to consider is home modification. that they need to have. Your mom's coming home from rehab, and before she fell and broke her hip, the stairs weren't a problem. Now the stairs are going to be a problem. So what does that mean? Is there a bathroom on the first floor? Can you make a room a bedroom? Are you going to have to get a stair chair? Can mom, those are the kinds of things that you might want to look at. Now I know that Aging Matters in Brevard has a home improvement portion. And Rose normally would join us, and depending on the capacity of of where it is, people can give Rose a call. And let me see what I got her number here.
It is 321 631 2744.
There you go. You're right. And Rose can talk to you about and she can help with things like installing grab bars, doing small transitions from one level to another, sort of from the inside of the garage to your kitchen door, or from your living room out to your lanai. That little transition. They can also help with some bigger stuff, or do we have a hold on that right now? There wasn't.
So we unfortunately do still have a little bit of a hold on that. We're trying to work on getting that released, but or getting a waiver on it, but we're still on that hold. But absolutely, those grab bars, those threshold ramps, the platforms for the reclining chairs, that they just need it needs to be a little bit higher.
Right. Right.
You know what?
Switch out if I bought a different doorknob.
Right.
You could have a fellow come out and swap that doorknob out for a handicap accessible doorknob.
And shower heads, light bulbs, all safety modifications in the home are what our housing improvement program does.
Right.
It's a safety modification. So absolutely. And it's, and if there's any questions at all, Rose would be the best person. She's been with us for a while, so she absolutely will have the answer for you. Or if she doesn't, she'll get you to who needs
she'll get to you where
who can help you. Yeah.
Folks should pay attention when they're walking through their loved one's home, if they're not staying, or they're staying, or in their own home, that they're paying attention to things like throw rugs and cords and widths of passageways. You might or might not recognize how narrow a passageway is until you try to get a wheelchair through it, or a walker. Or, you might have thought that it was just fine, but, maybe that end table needs to go in a different spot because mom can't go around the corner like that anymore with that, like I said, with the walker or with the cane. I think that people do need to pay attention. One of the things that I know Rose is always talking about when she has the ability to join us are those temporary suck-on grab bars.
Yeah.
I don't think she's a fan. I think that
that
can be really dangerous.
Yeah. Just the weight, the chance of the weight not holding and the suction not holding.
And they're not, and I guess it's sort of like, well, would it work to help balance yourself if you're, gonna, shave your leg and you just need to hold on to something? That's a different thing than having to grab onto it if you're starting to fall. And that security of knowing that that bar is securely into a stud in the wall, so there's home modifications, and also paying attention to where people when they're walking in their house, where they don't have access to a counter that they can hold on to. Maybe sometimes it might be that your hallway might be long enough that you might want a grab bar put in someplace else. I think that this conversation, and some of these, might be a conversation with Rose, but people should also think about it, even if they're doing their own home modification. That they to walk around as if they are their person that they're caring for, and recognize where the trouble spots might be.
it's funny you bring that up because recently with my father passing away, when we were up in Massachusetts, my mom had said that she had just set up therapy, for them to come in for my dad. And she says, I knew right away, because she was a registered nurse for many years. And she said, I knew right away what rugs they'd tell me to get rid of, and, what areas they'd tell me to open up,
Yeah.
and she said, and I just didn't do it. She says, but those are all the things that were triggering in her head, is what I need to get rid of and what I need to move. And you don't realize it until you have a rollator or some sort of walker going through the house that can cause trip hazards. So
I've had clients who said, well, I picked up the rug and put it in the closet until the nurse went away. And they right back out. And you don't realize that we're really, folks aren't saying it just to be nasty and negative. There's a reason for that. One of the things that I can say to people that they really need to pay attention to is adequate lighting. As we age, lighting gets to be a big deal. So make sure your garage is lit well enough. Make sure you've got adequate outdoor lighting. If today, even now, it's going to still be a few more weeks before it's bright enough to go outside to get your mail at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. It's still a little dark. We're blessed down here to not have it be quite as dark, quite as early as it is up in New England, where you and I are from. But it's going to be months before they're looking at the sun at 6 o'clock in the evening. You do need to pay attention to adequate lighting. And like I said, paying attention to, also, I think one of the things that people might want to look at with their families, as far as home modification, especially even if your mom is going to be staying by themselves and isn't going to need somebody there all the time, where are items in their cupboards that they're going to need to access that maybe you could bring down? And so if you might have, my mom had a pantry and she would keep sauces on the top shelf. When she had somebody staying with Dad, the woman said, oh, no, and brought them all down and had them all in a pull-out drawer. So that it was at her waist level or at her knee level rather than being way above her head. And
how did she feel about that though? Like, was she frustrated about that? Because I think that's an important conversation of, here they are coming in and.
And the woman asked her beforehand, and mom and she had a really good relationship. I think it really has to do with the rapport and the relationship they had built.
Right.
Because she said to my mom, how do you get those down? And my mom said, well, actually, I don't. And she said, well, we can fix that. Well, this isn't going to work. Let's see where else we can put this. But hopefully, if it's a family member, in this case, it wasn't, because at the time I wasn't living down here. But hopefully, if it's a family member or a personal, somebody you're primary caregiving for, you've got the kind of relationship where you could go around and you could say, okay, mom, I every morning I know you're making coffee. Let's bring this 2-pound can of coffee down a couple of shelves. You're right, it's touchy. People don't like being in, they don't like you being in their stuff. But those are the kinds of things that can make things a little less, a little less safe. Getting operating the stove can sometimes be a little bit of a contention. Where's the microwave? Is the microwave way up high? Is the microwave on the countertop? Do they have enough countertop space?
Right. When you run into those issues, and just kind of thinking about that as well, is you don't really pay attention to what's needed in the home until you run and come across it, Right. Going back to my mom when they had down in Florida, and they have 2 different places, one up in Plymouth, which is it's a 2-story, but their bedroom is in the bottom, in the main floor. But then their house in Florida, or their condo in Florida, their house is upstairs. And you don't realize what is needed until you run into a situation.
Right.
And there are those, and keep in mind, it's not, unfortunately, anything that we do here at Aging Matters, but there are a lot of different companies that put those electric chairs that go up the stairs, you know, and Beth, you mentioned it right before at one point. And they've come a long way from when my grandmother had one that the seat never folded up. So you had to squeeze by every time you went up the stairs.
Yeah.
And nowadays they're a lot different. You know, they're a lot narrower. They're just enough to put your, you know, buttocks on and sit down.
Right.
It rides up the chair or rides up the stairs and it folds right up. So it's very inconspicuous and not as noticeable as it had been 40 years ago, you know, even 30 years ago. So
and a lot more adapted. The one we have for my mother and father-in-law, it's a curved staircase. So that would have presented a few years ago, that would have presented a whole nother set of problems. They were able to come in and custom do it, and it lands halfway up, and the seat folds up, and everybody can walk up and down. But it's been a lifesaver. They're not inexpensive, but sometimes they are the difference between somebody staying in the home they love and not, or having to make a huge home renovation to be able to add that bathroom on the full bath on the first floor. In my mother and father-in-law's case, it's a matter of them being able to access their bedroom and their bathroom. You know, they could make the bedroom on the first floor, but the only full bath was upstairs. So how do you do that? You know, sponge baths are old.
You're 100% right on that part. They are not cheap.
No, they're not. Another thing that folks need to think about is laundry. And here you don't have to worry so much about laundry in the basement, but I know in New England, you know, that's where my mother and father's, you know, everybody's laundry is in the basement. My mother and father laundry was in the basement, and that was just just a train wreck every time I worried about my father-in-law going down the stairs. So thank goodness he's not
on the basement stairs at that.
Yeah,
with a cement floor at the bottom.
Cement floor at the bottom and a railing that was just a leftover piece of 2x4. Years ago. Yeah. Oh God. But in general, I will say that when folks want or need additional information about this sort of thing, they can certainly give Aging Matters at Brevard a call. They can call me at Sunflower House and I can point them in the right direction. Aging Matters in Brevard is 321-639-8770 is the main number. And my number here is 452-4341. And we can, just like you said with Rose, if we don't know the information, we will figure it out and get back to you. And sometimes it is an exploration together to find that out because things are so individual. We might not have at the tip of our tongue, but we can go and find it out and get that together. Last thing I do want to mention is durable medical equipment that we have available here at Sunflower House. At no cost to anybody, we have a bank of durable medical equipment such as walkers and wheelchairs, and we are a little bit old Mother Hubbard's covered right now. So if anybody out there has some pieces that they're looking to get out of their closet, I would love to be able to accept them. But in general, we do have a selection of different durable medical equipment, from walkers and canes and bedside commodes and raised toilet seats. And we don't carry the big stuff like hospital beds and electric scooters, but I can point you in the direction of people that do carry those items. So please feel free to give us a call. We will take donations of those and we lend them out at no cost. We just ask that you give it back when you're done with it. And people can keep them for as long as they need it.
I do just really want to add in real quickly there, Beth, too, is you touched upon about getting the information to them and what they need. If we cannot provide it, our job is to provide resources to the community and to be able to help seniors and their caregivers out there. So it may take a minute or two. It may take a little bit for us to do the research, but we all have qualified teams to be able to think outside of the box and figure something out. Options, it may not be the first option that is requested, but there's options out there, and that's what we're there for, is to help our seniors and their caregivers in any way possible. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to us and to ask us some questions. It makes us use our brain a little bit more and think outside of the box if it's not something that we immediately have. So
Always a good thing.
Don't hesitate to ask.
Always a good thing to use our brains a little more.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, we get those synapses just firing up. It's a good day. I want to remind folks that right now to call Sunflower House, and we have right now at this point have a monthly caregiver support group. Right now, the schedule is on the second Wednesday of every month. So we're recording this on Tuesday the 11th. Tomorrow, Jane will be here from Assisting Hands, and she's here to talk with folks who are caregiving. We also have a couple of bereavement support groups and grandparents raising grandchildren support groups. And our cancer caregiver support group is starting back up in February. I'm very excited. That's a very specific. That's a very specific kind of thing. We'll be talking more about support groups in our fourth segment in a couple of weeks. So please come back to us for next week, which is getting organized, or what I like to say is get your ducks in a row. Amy B. Van Fossen is going to be talking with us from about estate planning, wills and trusts, and a representative from Dignity Memorial, Wiley. I'm always getting those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The local funeral home is going to be coming here and talking about pre-planning your funeral, which I have to say, my mom and dad did that, and I've never been so grateful for a service in my life when my father passed away, because we were in no shape to be able to make those decisions, and it was a wonderful thing to have my dad have all of those things, not my mother not having to worry about it at the time. So
yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So anyways, those are my plugs for the next couple of weeks. I thank you very much, Allie, for joining me so that we can talk to folks about adjusting to a new normal. And I hope that folks think about coming in to visit us at Merritt Square Mall at the Sunflower House. And if not, take a look at our website and our Facebook page for our videos from our caregiver conversations too. And I thank you very much, Allie.
Wonderful.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Beth, for having me.
Bye-bye.